All right, the question from Sunday morning is, how can Jesus sympathize with us when it comes to being in love or struggling with lust or experiencing a broken heart when Jesus never experienced these things as a man? And I'm going to suggest that the question implies something that's not true. I don't think that Jesus didn't know what it meant to fall in love. I don't think it's true that Jesus didn't know what it meant to think a girl was pretty. And I don't think that it's true that Jesus didn't know what it meant to be lonely. I think when Jesus was 16, that he noticed the good-looking girl in town. That's ridiculous to think that he didn't. He's human. So, it's just one of those things that the difference between Jesus and us is that he didn't look at her as some kind of sexual object. I also think that Jesus knew the pain of being lonely. He knew the pain of a single guy who every night went to bed by himself. That's a lonely thing. And there's a lot of people within our church that are single, and that can be very lonely. There's some beauty to being single, but there's also some difficulty to being single, especially if you get into your 30s, as Jesus was 30 when he starts his public ministry. And so I think Jesus did know what it's like to be lonely. I think he knew what it's like to have his heart broken over relationships that were very important to him. I think he knew what it's like to have other guys make fun of him. I think he knew what it's like to experience all the normal guy life. And so I think that the question's a good one. How does Jesus sympathize with us? But I do think to say that he didn't ever experience those things, I don't think that's true. I think he experienced those things. The difference between him and me is that when he was in junior high, he didn't succumb to the sin aspects of seeing a young lady as being pretty. There's nothing sinful about a guy seeing a lady across the room and going, wow, she's a pretty person. She's a beautiful individual. There's nothing wrong or harmful to that. The problem is, for most men, or almost all men, if not all men but Jesus, it's hard for men or women to leave our thoughts at purely those kind of simple observations. And what Jesus experienced was the incredible discipline of being able to acknowledge that people were attractive or fun or funny or engaging without succumbing to human lust. And so I think he did know all that it is to sympathize, to be able to sympathize with us, to know all that it is to observe beauty, to observe relationships. Imagine Jesus sees these married relationships, these friendships that were quite profound within a marriage that he knew he wasn't going to experience. And so I think it was a place of loneliness for him. Jesus himself wept. We know that he had his heart broken, and that wasn't the only time he shed tears. There are actually 2 or 3 times in Scripture we recorded that he sheds tears, 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. So we know he had his heart broken. We know that his heart stirred with emotion, and so I think Jesus experienced all those things. He is a man. He's not a robot, and so all of those normal emotions, being a guy, being a man, would be there. And so, I think that's true, that Jesus experienced all those things with us. That's a really good question. I think it's hard to humanize Jesus that way, because we want to think of him almost so spiritual that we lose his humanity. And we don't want to do that. We want to, it's tempting for me to do that as well, but we want to be careful about also saying he's a guy, he's a man, he's a human being with all the normal fears and anxieties that might come to us in situations with relationships. And the difference between us and him is he doesn't give in to them. Every thought, every word, every angle of relationship, he protected from sin by spiritual discipline. And so that's the difference. And so he is tempted in all ways, yet without sin. And he does relate. If you're a single guy and you're like, I'm lonely, he related to that. If you're a single guy wanting to get married and you think someone's really pretty, he understood those things. He understood that there were some very beautiful people and some people like more like me, more homely, and that's just the way things are. And so he was human. He saw those things. He just was able to prevent himself from sinning. So, all right, it's interesting. We've had a lot of questions about Jesus and the issue of, could Jesus have sinned? If not, why? The issues of his own human relationship to human sin and how he lives a perfect life and still relates to us. So we've had a lot of questions about that. And I think it really is hard with the incarnation to think through, okay, he's God and man. What does that mean? And so either side of those, erring too much on either side of those, can cause us to maybe get misconceptions about him. If we lean all towards his deity, he becomes almost robotic and unhuman. If we live all towards his humanity, we deny the fact that he's God incarnate. He's God walking around among the people he created. And so balancing those two out has been not just an issue for us in modern circles or each one of us as individuals. This has been a battle since the Third Church Council, where they were discussing the nature of his humanity and the nature of his deity and how those two, how we understand those two in relationship to each other. And so good question, and it's an ongoing battle. As you read the scripture, you see the humanity of Jesus on display. Jesus got thirsty, he got tired, he wept, Jesus bled. You also see the deity of Jesus. Jesus knows what people are thinking. He's able to heal people at the mere whim of his word. He can walk on water and feed 5,000 people, and he can come back from the dead. So both of those things are in play, and it really it's hard for us to completely relate in every aspect of that. But I do think his humanity is just like ours. So anyway, great question. We'll see you guys on Sunday.
Are my